So, welcome everyone. Today is an exclusive online session with Rishikesh Kale sir on getting started with Filecoin and IPFS. Rishikesh Kale sir, a 7x Hackathon winner, Filecoin Pioneer, and ScalingEthereum Judge. He will be sharing his expertise and knowledge today. So, please start with the session.
Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Karthik. Let me just get started by sharing my screen and then we will take it forward. Okay. All right. So, as mentioned by Karthik, today's session is all about getting you all guys started with IPFS and Filecoin. Letting something know about me. So, I'm Rishikesh Kale, and I would be the one who would be taking you through. I will make sure that you get proper insights about what is IPFS and then what is Filecoin and how they enhance each other. So, without further ado, let's just get started. So our today's agenda will look something just like this. We will be covering some basic concepts of Web3, IPFS, and Filecoin. And later we will talk about Filecoin virtual machine. And this session won't be just some theoretical knowledge, but we would also have one hands-on session. And at the end, if you have any questions to discuss, we will take it accordingly. Okay, so starting with IPFS and Filecoin. So when you have a look at Web2 ecosystem, the current system is quite centralized. Talk of any application, for example, your daily application, Instagram, that system is also completely centralized, wherein like all your data is stored in a centralized database, and your own data, you are not the ownership of that particular data. When we talk about Web3, we get introduced to two new terms. The first one is distributed, and the second one is decentralized. What this makes is it overcomes the flaws of centralized ecosystem. Just like if you can just see the diagram in the centralized ecosystem, we are having just one central node. Just imagine what if the central node fails. The whole system would fail, right? And all the data which is stored on the centralized system would just get lost. And when you talk about decentralized and distributed ecosystem, you can see that there is no central node as such. Each of the node is interconnected with each other, and that is how Web3 makes it possible that even if a particular node fails, the other node is still active and your data isn't lost. So what is exactly is IPFS? IPFS stands for Interplanetary File System. Okay. So having said that, like what exactly IPFS is? So it is used to store your files, folders, or any sort of data on a distributed network. So IPFS is necessarily a distributed ecosystem. So what IPFS addresses the content by what it is and not where it is located. So when you have a look at the traditional ecosystem, it is addressed by particular domain where the particular file is located. So it is not, IPFS does not address any content in that matter. So it addresses the content by what it is. So it would generate a particular content identifier, which we call it as content ID. So it will just replace the folder or the file location with the content ID. So in the traditional system, that is Web2 ecosystem, each of the data which is getting stored, it is addressed by the location or the domain. But when it comes to IPFS, it is not, the file location is actually replaced by the content ID. So the URL of a particular data which is hosted on IPFS would look something like this: IPFS colon slash slash, and then the content identifier of the data which was stored on IPFS. So what does this mean? So if I'm storing a particular image on IPFS, it would generate a content identifier based on the hash value of that particular data. So if someone else uploads the same data, it would generate the same content identifier. So you always get to know that anybody would be able to retrieve the data depending upon the content identifier. So just like what are the different benefits of it? So like how you actually can leverage this IPFS into your system. The first way is you can run your own IPFS node. You become the part of the IPFS ecosystem and you start storing the data on your own node itself, and also you can store your own data. The next one is run your own network of nodes. You don't stop here, you just don't have a single node, but you now develop a cluster or a network of these nodes, and then you can just start storing that more amount of data on this IPFS network. And third, the next one is you can start a pinning services. So what exactly pinning services is, it would pin the data. Let's say for example, I will just take an example. Let's say like me and my friend are currently like playing around on Mars, and my friend is fetching some data from Earth. So like there would be some sort of like time that is being taken by the system to fetch the data from Earth, and then it would be reflected on his system. But what if I have already stored like fetched the data from Earth previously, and I am having that on my node on Mars? So this is, I would be acting as a pinning service for my friend, because since I have already fetched that particular data, it would be, instead of fetching that data directly from Earth, he would be able to fetch the data from me. So what are some of the famous pinning services? Just to name a few, you can have Pinata, you can have Infura, and there are more. So we would see and learn about different service providers as we progress ahead. And the last thing is to like maybe you can build some sort of like innovative data or some like unique data, so that each of the node or the most of the nodes on this complete IPFS ecosystem, they would be eager to store your data. It gets viral maybe, or it is highly important to the human mankind, so they would be storing the data. So these are the possible ways in which the your data would get stored on IPFS. Okay, but now when we are saying that these nodes are able to store your data, what if these nodes stop storing your data? Are there any decentralized and at the same time reliable alternatives? So definitely IPFS is decentralized, but we are talking about a reliable alternative, because we don't want to lose our data at any cost. So here comes Filecoin into picture. So Filecoin is a storage system designed for Web3, and which is compatible with IPFS and Web3. It is responsible to generate a verifiable cryptographic proofs to the one who has uploaded his data on IPFS via Filecoin. And it's a massive decentralized network. We will get into the subtopics in more detail. So the first one is compatible with IPFS and Web3. So the first and foremost thing is, Filecoin is not a competitor of IPFS, but it is built up to scale and improvise the current existing system of IPFS. So like it uses IPFS in the backhood to store the data, but at the same time, via generating the verifiable cryptographic proofs, it assures the one who has uploaded the data that his data is stored securely on a particular node with a storage provider. And the block rewards are used as an incentives to incentivize the nodes who are storing the data. So that is how the complete ecosystem of Filecoin and IPFS revolves around. And we are seeing that there are tons of TB of data which are stored right now on this massive decentralized network. And this complete system of storage system is now governed by a consensus mechanism, without any sort of a single like corporation. Like instead of single corporation just storing the data, it's now governed by a whole ecosystem, and definitely backed by a consensus mechanism, which makes it possible. So what is the life cycle or the complete cycle of a Filecoin storage deal? What happens is, let's say I am a client who wants to store a data for, let's say for next 6 months. I'm working on a certain project and I want to store the data on a decentralized network. So what I would do is I would come up and create a time limited deal, and that can happen via an app, offline, off chain, or via a smart contract. When I'm saying smart contract, I would be talking about it further when I enter the section Filecoin virtual machine, because now with the help of it, we are able to write down the smart contracts on Filecoin blockchain itself. Once the deal is created, the deal is then been visible to the different storage providers who store the data, and after some period of time, the regular intervals, they generate proof of replication, which is then passed on to the different nodes, and they can say that, okay, I'm having this much amount of copies on my node, and I'm safely storing your data. So let's say like I'm having very sensitive data and I don't want to lose it at any cost, so I would make multiple replications of that. Then the next thing is, over the period of time, the providers would prove that they still have that random subset of client data by creating proof of space time published, which is published directly on Filecoin blockchain. So there is no flaws in this system which can be tampered with or which can be played with. So this is what make the complete Filecoin blockchain a robust solution to create a decentralized and reliable storage ecosystem. Now, after the 6 months period of time, if my project doesn't end and I want to continue storing the data on Filecoin, I would renew the deal for next 6 months, next 12 months, or next 18 months, depending upon the lifetime of the data which I want to do. And this is how the cycle goes on, and the data is stored on Filecoin securely. So Filecoin and IPFS, it's just another love story, and wherein Filecoin is used for fast, flexible retrieval, and at the same time, Filecoin provides you persistent and verifiable data which is stored on IPFS. Moving on towards the next thing. When we talk about the complete Web3 ecosystem, we are having different Web3 stack which we generally have a look at. It can be the blockchains. Then maybe if you want to build more scalable solution, you might look at the L2s or side chains. And definitely from developers point of view, it would be some development environments which are important to us. And the most important is file storage, because without file storage, there is no possibility of storing the data in a decentralized manner. So there comes into picture IPFS and Filecoin. Then there are different sub requirements like indexing and queries, which the graph protocol fulfills. Maybe if you want to if you want the on-chain data to communicate with the off-chain world, so you can make use of oracles, for example Chainlink. Then there are more off-chain data protocols like Ceramic is there, Gun and Thread DS is there. And then talking about identity, so it's nothing but the how the user or the decentralized application would identify a particular user, and that things can be carried out by different wallet or the different ID wallets as well. And lastly, to communicate your smart contracts with the front end, you can make use of the client libraries like Web3.js is there, Ethers.js is there, just to name a few. So as we have seen, like Filecoin and IPFS are most important part of your decentralized application, as it is rightly said, not on IPFS, not your data. Okay. Then if you just have a look at the complete architecture of how your complete DApp would look like, or how your DApp would communicate with the Filecoin and IPFS layer. So this slide it showcases that. So on the topmost layer, wherein the data is loaded from the front end, so the front end would be responsible to fetch the data from IPFS, which first verifies or first gets to know currently which users data do we want to fetch, and that is being done by decentralized web wallet or a blockchain wallet. And later it talks with some storage helper. Some storage helpers are Pinata is there, NFT.storage is there, Web3 storage is there, and which in turns at the bottommost layer talks with the content which is stored on IPFS and Filecoin. Okay, let's move further. So I talked about the different storage providers which are currently available with you. So these are some of the one which you might want to use during your while building your decentralized application during this hackathon. So the first one is Web3.storage. You can just navigate to its website, and all the complete documentation, easy SDK integrations are available. You just need to integrate their SDK and just pass the required data which you want to store, and you are good to go. The integration with NFTs, integration with the IPFS and Filecoin is done. Then the next thing is NFT.storage. If you are building an NFT specific decentralized application, so this should be your choice. And the next one is Lighthouse.storage. So one drawback of IPFS is when you store the data on IPFS, since it's a distributed and a decentralized network, so your data gets public. But at times you may not want your data to get public, so you can with the help of lighthouse storage, you can not just upload the data on IPFS, but at the same time you would be able to put down some access controls. So that access controls can be, let's say, if you are having certain NFT, so only that particular user would be able to unlock that data. Or maybe you might ask like for some ERC20 tokens, like if you are having some amount of ERC20 tokens, so then only you would be able to unlock that data. And the last one is Flick. So you might have heard about Netlify and Versal. So Flick is just another one, but the difference here is that now even your website is stored on IPFS, which can be again for your lifetime. You don't need to renew the price plans and all that stuff. And at the same time, you can just say that it's stored on IPFS and your website won't get down. Like there are some outages, like Insta gets down, like WhatsApp gets down. But if your website is stored on such distributed network, there would be some node who would be still active and keeping your website up and active. Now, coming to the next section, Filecoin virtual machine. So this is something which is quite new in the town, and the agenda goes like, what is FVM and what you can build on FVM and how do you can actually build on FVM. So let's cover it step by step. So what exactly is FVM? So till now we have learned about Filecoin network, which is the storage layer, and now what FVM delivers you is on-chain programmability to the Filecoin network. Now you can actually program the data that you are trying to store on Filecoin network. Not just data, but you can also deploy your own smart contracts on Filecoin network as well. So which was not possible till date, and just in March the Filecoin virtual machine was launched. So here's your opportunity to build something really unique and be the first movers on Filecoin virtual machine. So how does the architecture look like? The L0, level 0 is the storage layer that we call it as Filecoin network. Then the L1, that is on-chain, which is computation over the state of the data. And that would be done by Filecoin virtual machine. And now it's your chance to build the L2, which is computation over the data. So Filecoin, what Filecoin does, it stores the data, that is the storage layer. Then Filecoin virtual machine, it allows you to compute over the state of the data. Like you can have some sort of deals. We talked about how the deals are being made on Filecoin. So you can just like check whether a particular deal is active. You can write down an automated smart contract which allows to renew the cycle of the deals over and over again. So this is something Filecoin virtual machine would do. And L2 is computation over the data directly. So what can I build on FVM? So this is something you all might be seeking, and like you are eager to like what sort of ideas can I build during this hackathon on Filecoin. So just to start with the center of attraction, Dataverse and Data DAOs. So just imagine there are some group of like members who want to store some sort of data altogether. For example, let's just take an example. There is an ancient language which was discovered by some historians. So they decide like we want a reliable data wherein we can safely store this particular scripts for till the end of the humankind. So what are the possibilities? The centralized database is actually not an answer to this, because you never know when that system might fail, right? So here comes into picture Filecoin and IPFS, wherein you can actually store the data for longer period of time, and we call it as perpetual renewable storage. So what you can do is like you can just create a DAO or a community. So DAO is nothing but decentralized autonomous organization. So you can form a small decentralized autonomous organization among the historians, and maybe some government members can be involved, and they would be coming together to protect the data, and they would be creating the deals with the storage providers on Filecoin blockchain, and then they would be that particular smart contract would enable to store the data for lifetime. So that is one of the most interesting use case, and like you guys can build something around this as well. So you can take any use case, think of any use case for which you need data DAOs, and build something around it. The examples of like to get started, there is Filecoin virtual machine had that starter kit. There are some examples of building data DAOs, so you can refer that as well. Then Apart from this, now I will just cover this up quickly. There are perpetual renewable storage, that is storing the data for lifetime. Storage insurance, like providing the insurance to the storage providers in case they lose the data. Who is going to repay that? So you can just build out some storage insurance mechanism. Then you can have trustless reputation systems. Then trustless reputation systems may be just like, for example, you travel via cab. So there are like, when you interact with the Uber application, you get to see the driver's ratings, like with whom you would be traveling further. So you can just at times see like, okay, this driver is not having good ratings and I want a safe travel, so I would like just quickly cancel that ride and choose some another one. Same goes with the client and storage provider interaction. You can build something called as trustless reputation system for the storage providers, wherein the client would be able to see that whether they want to or doesn't want to continue with a particular storage provider. Apart from that, there are on-chain voting, tokens, storage, futures and derivatives, NFTs. So now your NFT metadata as well as the NFT contract resides on the same blockchain. So you can again build an exciting NFT platform on Filecoin. And just giving you for some insights, there are just couple of two parties who are currently building NFT related projects on Filecoin. So maybe you might want to become the third biggest player on this. Then the next one is storage bounties, sector auctions. Sector auctions are something again related to the storage providers, wherein the storage providers try to seal more amount of sectors to store more amount of data, become more reputed storage providers on this Filecoin ecosystem. So these sectors again go after auctions. Now all these auctions weren't monitored via a smart contract. Now you can have a smart contract for sector auctions as well. Then there is something called as time lock retrieval. So just like I mentioned, like you can put some access control over the data that is stored on IPFS. Now you can have like, maybe I just want to launch a movie that is going to release exactly at 12 a.m. Friday. So maybe you can have a time locked retrieval system can be built, and the movie doesn't get leaked before Friday 12 a.m. and it would get unlocked only after this particular time. So these are the different ideas which you want to build on Filecoin virtual machine. I will just give you like, maybe you guys can take just couple of minutes to scan this QR. Whatever the use case which I have just discussed, this QR will take you to a web page called as Request for Startups FVM Edition. I repeat, it's Request for Startups FVM Edition. So and you can just go through these use cases in detail. So maybe just take out your smartphones and just scan this QR. And if you are, in case you aren't able to scan the QR from wherever you are sitting, so maybe you can just Google for Request for Startups FVM Edition. Okay, I guess you guys might have been quite quick to get this done. Moving on to the next slide, or maybe like, if you want, if someone might have missed, I will just send those link to the organizer and you can just fetch it from them as well. So how do I build on FVM? So the first things, like when we are talking about interacting with the storage providers or the Filecoin network via FVM, you can just make use of filecoin.sol, which is an open zeppelin like library. So what exactly open zeppelin is, it is a collection of set of standard smart contracts which you can just directly import inside your smart contract and just call the functions, just like you import some libraries in your Python code to sort an array. In the similar, it is just as easier as sorting an array by importing the library. Same way, you can just import the filecoin.sol inside your smart contracts and start interacting with the built-in actors on Filecoin blockchain. There are again an examples of how this can be done inside the Filecoin hard at starter kit. Okay, let me move on towards the next slide now. If you anything and everything which you might want to build, so you can just go to this link tree for Filecoin virtual machine. Again, you can just scan this QR. I will wait for other 60 seconds for it, and it will take you to the required resources which you might want to use while building. or else again you can always Google and go to the Filecoin documentation, which has been there, and it is again very well managed by the maintainers there. So it's quite helpful in building any decentralized application on Filecoin virtual machine. Okay, awesome. So now enough of theory. It's time for some hands-on. So let me just switch the mode. So this is something which I have created for you, an example NFT smart contract. I was told that the crowd here is mixed crowd. Some are just getting started into Web3, while some have some good knowledge of Web3. So I will just try to keep it very simple for both of you. I have just visited to remix.ethereum.org, which is an online IDE for writing down the smart contracts, compiling them, deploying them on various blockchains possible. So we would be using this particular tool for writing the smart contracts and deploying it to the network. Okay, so what this particular smart contract does, so this smart contract is responsible to create a NFT collection and allow anyone to come up and mint that particular NFT. Okay, so what I will just who are quite very new to Solidity, I will just try to go through the code line by line so that you get a good grasp over it. So the first thing is license identifier. So it allows like each smart contract to have its own license, just like while uploading on GitHub, you might have seen like there are different licenses available for if you are building an open source code, you might use an MIT license and or any other license for that matter. So in similar way, we are having the license identifier here in Solidity as well. Okay, then the next line is quite very important. So Solidity is an ever growing language, so you really need to keep a track on what all are updated things or new features that are added to Solidity. So the version of Solidity keeps like improvising daily. So right now it is somewhere around, the latest one is somewhere around 0.8.18 or so. So I have just defined the Solidity version which this particular smart contract would run upon between 0.7.0 to 0.9.0. Okay, then I was talking about Open Zeppelin libraries. So I have just quickly imported the ERC 721 standard library, which is responsible to create NFTs. The other just for like an additional knowledge, apart from ERC 721, we are having another standard for creating NFTs, which is ERC 1155. So you can like play around with it as well. The next one is just counters library. I just want to increment a variable called as token IDs by 1. So I am just making use of directly the counters library, which is provided by Open Zeppelin. Now coming to the body of the contract. So I just first defined the name of the contract and which particular library it is implementing. So it's implementing ERC 721 URI storage, which is a sub library or an extension of ERC 721. Okay, now later I have like also initialized a variable called as token IDs, which would be incremented whenever a particular NFT is getting minted. Inside the constructor, I have like initiated the ERC 721 contract, passed on the two required variables. The first one is name of this collection, and the second one is the symbol of the collection. Okay, now coming to the mint functionality, which allows to mint a new NFT. So taking two parameters for which address or for which user I want to mint the NFT, and the token URI, that is nothing but the metadata of the NFT, which would be stored on IPFS or the various storage providers. For this particular tutorial, I would be choosing lighthouse.storage. So you can choose any one of it, web3.storage or nft.storage for that matter. Okay, then since this function visibility needs to be public because anybody should be able to access that, I haven't set any restrictions as to who would be able to mint that particular NFT. You can just play around with that conditions and just add some required statements as to who can mint the NFT. And this particular function returns the token ID, so it returns an uint variable which is unsigned integer. So again, it generates a new token ID, which is fetched by the token IDs. Then we are having two functions. The first one is mint function, which is a function that is inside the ERC-721 smart contract, and we are calling that here. Inside it, we call the pass the required parameters, that is to and the new token ID. Then we set the token ID for that particular token ID to the token URI, and lastly we increment the token ID as well, and then return the new token ID. Okay, so that is about the smart contract. Now to compile the smart contract, I will just go through this and just click on compile HackOFiesta.sol, and later we can just you can just see like which compiler you are using. So and we need to select the compiler version between 0.7.0 and 0.9.0. So the latest one is 0.8.19, but I'm selecting a more stable one, that is 0.8.7. Okay. Okay, so our smart contract is successfully compiled. Now we are all set to deploy our smart contract. But for that, we need to set the network on our MetaMask as well. So MetaMask is a blockchain wallet. So you can just Google for like MetaMask Chrome extension yeah, inside your browser, and you can just download that particular extension. The next thing would be like adding a particular network. Since I want to deploy the smart contract on Filecoin virtual machine, so Filecoin virtual machine has got its own testnet, so you don't really need any sort of real crypto, so you can just choose hyperspace. So how to do that? Just navigate to chainlist.org, and you should be able to look out for search networks and just search for hyperspace there. Make sure that you have picked this block, that is include testnets. Then and then only you would be able to see Filecoin hyperspace testnet. The next thing would be add to MetaMask. Since in my system I'm already having Filecoin hyperspace testnet added, so I really don't need to just add it again. So it is as easy as just click on this add to MetaMask button, and you should be good to go. The next thing is, I was just saying like you really don't need any sort of real crypto, so how are you going to deploy the smart contract? Because for playing around with smart contracts, deploying the smart contracts, or interacting with it, you need some sort of cryptos, right? So what you can do is navigate to hyperspace.yoga and just scroll down, and you would see the faucet section, or you can just simply Google Filecoin hyperspace faucet, and you should be able to get this particular website. Okay, all you need to do is copy your account address from here and paste it down inside this required dialog box, input box, and now you need to verify that whether you are human or not. So let me just quickly do it. It's asking me to select all the lighthouse pictures. I will just quickly do it. I hope like it recognizes me as an human. Okay, I'm done, and let me just click on send button. The transaction is created, and you can see the transaction ID right over here, and the 25 T file tokens would be shortly credited into my account. So right now I am already having some 45 test Filecoin tokens, so I don't really need to wait for that. I will just progress ahead. So you need to just change the environment from remix VM to injected provider. Once you do that, let me just refresh this page again. Okay, moving to, I will just compile it again. The next step is injected provider MetaMask. It will pop up the MetaMask, and it will ask me to select which account do I want to connect with MetaMask. And once I'm connected, I can see that I'm connected to Filecoin hyperspace testnet, and you can just verify whether it is the custom network 3141 or not. Okay, and meanwhile it fetches my balance. Okay, now you can see like 44.98 test field tokens are there inside my account, and I am eligible to deploy the smart contract. I will just select the smart contract here, hit the deploy button. It will again pop up MetaMask and ask me to confirm the transaction. You can see this is the required gas fees. I will just click on confirm the transaction. This might take some another like 1 or 2 minutes for that transaction to be completed. Meanwhile, we are waiting we are waiting for the transaction to be completed. Maybe you can just copy it. As you can see, I have just received some tremendous amount of 200 test field tokens. I can just copy it for hyperspace, we are having hyperspace.filefox.info. It's an blockchain explorer, so you can just navigate to this. If you are deploying your smart contract on mainnet, you can change the network here. Just like for Ethereum, we are having Etherscan. So in similar way, for this we are having Filefox. Okay, I will just enter my account address, and I have just searched for it, and you can see like at 7:36 I just got credited with some 250 Filecoin tokens. Now that transaction was successful. Okay, and we are waiting for this transaction to be completed. Okay, so meanwhile, let's get our Filecoin, so NFT metadata get ready. So for that matter, I will just give you a walkthrough through lighthouse.storage. So the first thing is storing your files on permanently on IPFS. So this is what file lighthouse.storage brings to you. You can just check out the different features which are provided by them, and they are having some good Lighthouse SDK, using which you can integrate that system directly into your web application. But for this particular demo, we would be interacting with their own decentralized application which they have built, but you can always integrate this system directly into your website as well. Okay, so now this is the particular the app which I was talking about. First things first, let's log in quickly into this system. You can either log in with your email, MetaMask, or any other blockchain wallet, or continue with GitHub or Google. I will just continue with Google first, and we will just wait for this to authenticate ourselves, and we should be good to go. Okay, so we are having, I'm able to see my past files which I have uploaded, but before that I will just go here and click on upload new section, since I want to upload a new file. So I will just click here, and maybe I will just go to downloads and just look out for some good pick. Okay, I'm having this little pudgy here, so I have just uploaded, and you can just see within seconds my file was quickly uploaded. And when I go back to dashboard, I am able to see like what was the size, what is the cid is nothing but the content identifier. That is how the IPFS system is able to recognize the data which is stored on that system. Okay, we can see like when the file was stored right here. So what do we need to do is like we have just clicked on nft.png, and all these details is available here as well. I can just copy the link and just paste it right here, and I am able to see that data now, that this image is hosted on this particular URL, and it would be on this URL forever. Okay, so okay, my smart contract is deployed here, and if I just refresh this explorer, I should be able to see. Okay, I am able to see that this particular smart contract transaction, that is create external transaction, was created. That's good. Now I am all set to interact with the HackOFiesta NFT smart contract. Now, to which address do I want to win the NFT and the token URI? I have already copied the token URI, so I will just paste it right here. So this is nothing but the token URI. So token URI can be just the image or some JSON data, and you can just upload that JSON data onto lighthouse.storage, and it will again convert that into an URL, and you just need to pass that URL in the parameter called as token URI. Okay, and you can just copy for whatever account address you might want to mint the NFT for. So I'm just minting it for my address right now. By clicking on transact button, I'm able to interact with the smart contract, and let me just confirm the transaction. All right, so meanwhile the transaction gets confirmed, you can just quickly see, do I have any balance? So I don't have any balance right now, because the maintained transaction is yet to be confirmed and successful on the blockchain. So that's why the balance is 0, and there is no token ID called as token ID 1, so it won't give me an error. Okay, let me just wait for this transaction to be completed. Now, till the time that transaction gets completed, I have some another feature which I want to showcase to you regarding lighthouse.storage. So this is nothing but encryption. So when I click on encryption on, it asks me to upload the file. I will just upload any of the file, and within seconds it is successfully uploaded. Now you can see like there's a lock icon appearing here, and an option to apply access control to this file. When I click on like apply access control, I'm able to add a condition. So what I can do is, let's say I'm having an NFT contract on Ethereum. For example, let's take an example of any famous NFT collection, Bored Ape collection, we can say. So its contract type is ERC 7021. And I will just pass here the Bored Ape NFT smart contract, and I will just say that I will just choose the comparator, that the balance of this smart contract for the user needs to be greater than, let's say he must hold at least two Bored Ape NFTs, only then he would be able to unlock that data. And you can add, just have some parameter like user address, or if you just want to whitelist some addresses, and you should be great, ready to go. So you can just apply any sort of access control conditions based on NFTs or ERC20 tokens, or the another standard, that is ERC 1155. Okay, so this is something which I would leave up to you. They already have some SDKs which you can just have a look at. If I'm not wrong, the name of the SDK should be Kavach SDK, which allows you to encrypt the data. So it would be somewhere around like upload and encrypted here, and you can just import the Kavach SDK by lighthouse.storage, and you should be good to go regarding the encryption. Let me just refresh this. Our transaction should have been mined till now, and yeah, definitely we have invoked the smart contract method successfully few minutes before. And if I just go back and check the balance now, the balance has successfully incremented to 1. And if I just check who is the owner of token ID 0, and I'm now getting that this particular user is the owner of the NFT with token ID 0. So that is how you can fetch the data from this readable functions on your front end. You can showcase it, and this is how you should be able to interact with the complete smart contracts which is deployed on Filecoin virtual machine. So again, reminding just few suggestions, for if you want to deploy your smart contract on Filecoin virtual machine, there's a testnet called as Hyperspace. You don't need to deploy it on mainnet. So it's absolutely free for deploying your smart contracts on the testnet, that is Hyperspace network. So you can just get started it for free. Okay. And if you are just looking for some tutorials, so you can just navigate to Proto School, and there are different interactive tutorials available, which is built with love by the Filecoin team. So you can definitely go there. And if you're still having some doubts, you can just navigate to our Discord or Slack. So there are different channels available, so you can just search for IPFS or Filecoin, and you should be able to directly contact with the developers working here, and you should be able, your doubts would be cleared in no time. So that was all from my side. Let me know if you have any questions now.
That's great explanation, sir. Thank you for providing such a clear and concise explanation. Sir, there are a few queries. So, what is the roadmap for future development of IPFS and Filecoin? And what new features or improvements can we expect to see in the near future?
Right. First, I will talk about IPFS. So IPFS is right now a very good distributed system for storing the data, but there are some drawbacks. When I upload the file on IPFS, it gets public. So right now, just like as you have seen, you can just encrypt the data, which is before storing it on IPFS. So you can build your own encryption mechanism as well, and so that it enables the developers to add any sort of logic as to who would be able to view the data. So this is some certain thing called as access control, which is quite required in the IPFS ecosystem. Now coming to Filecoin, so with the introduction of Filecoin virtual machine, it has really opened more number of doors for you all. So you guys are going to be someone who would be building the first 500 developers who would be building on Filecoin virtual machine. So it's a really great opportunity. So I guess I have covered most of the use case which you can build around on Filecoin virtual machine in the presentation. So and just look after the data DAO one, which is really sought after use case right now, and which is really very much required. So you can just hunt out for it. Yeah.
That's great. So, one more question. What are some of the biggest challenges IPFS and Filecoin will face in terms of adoption and scalability, and how piracy can be reduced if it is possible?
Right. The scalability issue is really much required. So when you look at the pinning services, if you are directly fetching a data from IPFS, it would take somewhere around like minimum of 10 seconds to fetch the data. But when you fetch it via a pinning services, it would fetch the data for you in very quickly. So you can add some flavor of like artificial intelligence to it to map down the nodes which are really very near to that data, and just see how you can build some pinning services and automated pinning services using AI as well. That would be some really interesting use case. And some issues which this thing can be faced in terms of adoption. So really like for storing the data on IPFS or Filecoin, you really don't need crypto, because there are some storage providers like Lighthouse or storage, NFT or storage, Web3 or storage. So you really don't need any crypto. So we just need to bring some awareness, like how we can make use of such distributed database systems to store the data, and you should be good to go. But in case like you are someone who is a huge company, so they might want to create and some sliced network among these nodes to store the data. So these big players would require to just have some amount of crypto to interact with their system. So that is something to look up to, but that is just another sign of the coin. So yeah.
That's really great explanation. So, one more question. What are some of the potential use cases for IPFS in various industries?
Okay, so like whenever we want to have a public data, which needs to be stored without allowing anyone to tamper with that data. It can be any medical medical data as well, because like at times you don't want the medical data to be tampered with by anyone. So it not necessarily needs to be any sort of like patient's data, but it can be any data related to the complete supply chain of medical ecosystem. So that can be something. Apart from that, there can be some data which is required to be stored for which you cannot afford to lose at any cost. Let's say like what system you can build is like just like I was talking about some ancient language. You cannot afford to lose such an important piece of data. So you would want it to be accessible by anyone throughout the globe, right? Anybody should be able to access, like nobody would should have restrictions as to I'm residing in a particular geographical area, and maybe some centralized database is not supporting that geographical area. So the people residing in that area won't be able to leverage that data. But that thing is not in case of IPFS. Whether you are living in the remote region of South Africa, even then you would be able to fetch the data from IPFS, and you would be able to leverage that data. So in such use cases wherein you want to break the geographical boundaries, wherein you want to bring more transparency. Now transparency can be among the government like projects as well. It can be you can build some sort of like complete social media application as well, because like in social media you at times see that some accounts get suspended without any reason, just because like it violates the like some rules stated by that centralized body. So but when we talk about freedom of speech, it's freedom of speech. Whether that speech which you are stating is right or wrong, it is a secondary part. But since we as a human have got freedom of speech, so we should be able to express ourselves. So when we are saying that, so the freedom of speech really needs to be something that should be available to every human. So you can build some sort of social media applications wherein your data shouldn't be taken down by anybody. So this thing again can be possible using Filecoin and IPFS again. So these are some of the use cases which you can think of.
That's great explanation, sir. We will sure see you in the next session, and thanks for giving your precious time.
All right. So good luck everyone. So you guys can choose one of the track, whether you want to play around with the IPFS or whether you want to play around with Filecoin virtual machine. So looking forward to some exciting projects coming out from this hackathon. Good luck. Thank you.